Hey everybody, it's Dave here from Dragonhill Games, and you're watching This Week in MTG Finance. As always, and before we get started, I want to thank MTG Stocks for allowing us to use graphical information for the purposes of this video. Well, things seem to be slowing down a little bit in anticipation of Time Spiral Remastered hitting the markets next week. That said, we do have a couple of big winners, although none of the cards seem to be rising this week for any particular reason other than the fact that they're either old and collectible or on the reserve list. So let's dive right into our top 10 list, and we're going to start right here with Vitalize from Classic 6th Edition. Vitalize is a staple in many green stompy decks, although it also plays a role in a lot of decks that want to be able to use their commander multiple times in a turn. For just 1 green mana at instant speed, we get to untap all creatures we control, and this particular printing of Vitalize is up 130% this week, to almost $2.25. Coming in at number 9 and up 137% this week to $14.50, we have Zombie Master from Revised Edition. Of note, this has quite a few other printings, usually in core type sets. You can actually get the 4th edition printing of Zombie Master for still under $5 should you want one for your own collection. There's a couple reasons behind this card moving this week. First of all, the market price has been running higher than the average selling price for a little while now. So essentially what's happening here is people are willing to pay more than the cards are actually getting listed for. So there's a bit of a price correction or price catch up, I guess you could say, going on here. The other thing is that revised edition cards have been targeted recently in specific buyouts. So cards that are actually playable in decks, and Zombie Master appears in some, not a ton of commander decks, but it does appear in some, and it also appears in a lot of casual EDH decks. For this reason, it's easy to see why someone would want to target a buyout on something like Zombie Master. Our number 8 winner this week is a little bit of a weird one. We have Subjugator Angel from Game Night at $2.30. This is up 224% this week. It has an Eldritch Moon printing in the uncommon slot at just 28 cents. So there's quite a bit of a price disparity here, and clearly we are talking about a printing specific spike. As Magic collectors, we do love our odd and hard to get cards, don't we? Subjugator Angel actually has some play value, especially in casual sort of go wide EDH decks. For 6 mana, we're getting a 4/3 flying angel, but when Subjugator Angel enters the battlefield, tap all creatures your opponents control. Clearly, this could be used as a way to finish one or multiple opponents. Up 242% this week to $4, our number 7 winner is the Fallen from the Dark. You can actually get a Chronicles printing of this for like a quarter. Unfortunately, this is not really a playable card. It costs 4 mana for a 2/3. Now, during your upkeep, the Fallen does 1 damage to each opponent it has previously damaged. In theory, it's kind of a cool idea behind this card, and it's a little bit unique in the sense that there's not a lot of this type of thing out there. However, I think if a card like this was going to get printed today, it would probably be 1 less mana, and or you would also be able to tap it to ping an opponent. Let's make it a real threat. And I don't think that is an unreasonable power level for 4 mana in today's environment. Coming in at number 6, Torax Gate from Fallen Empires is pretty obscure. Up 267% this week to $4.75. And this is a reserved list card. Thrall's not something they really kept up with over the years. There's been a few cards here and there. Actually, Commander Legends did feature a couple of cards that used Thralls as creature types and or created Thralls. For 3 mana, we're getting an enchantment. You enchant a land you control. Now, you can sacrifice a Thrall to put 3 time counters on Torax Gate. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are no time counters on Torax Gate, you have to sacrifice it. But it adds tap the land, Torax Gate enchants, and all attacking creatures you control get +2, -1 until end of turn. Like I was saying, this is a fairly obscure card, and it doesn't appear in a lot of decks for obvious reasons. But if you head on over to EDH Rec, you can see that there's actually a couple of pretty creative decks that use Torax Gate. In the number 5 spot this week, and up 293% to $15.55, we have Auspicious Ancestor from Mirage. Now, this is also a reserve list rare. On the surface, this card doesn't look that great, but it's actually been errated, and it seems to be somewhat useful, especially in a life gain deck. So this now is a human cleric. So obviously those two things are very important. For 4 mana, we're getting a 2/3 human cleric. If Auspicious Ancestor is put into the graveyard from play, we gain 3 life, and we can spend 1 colorless mana to gain a life each time we successfully cast a white spell. I could definitely see this employed, at least at the casual level, in various life gain type strategies. Now our number 4 winner this week is also up 293% to just over $5.50, and that would be Necropolis from the Dark. It's not actually a reserve list card, but it doesn't have any other printings either. Clearly this slots very well into a deck like Arcades the Strategist. In fact, I'm surprised we didn't see more of a bump in this card around the time that Arcades was released. For 5 mana, we're getting an artifact creature, and it's actually a wall. It's a 0/1, it has Defender, so both of these things have been errated to add to it. Now for 0 mana, we can take a creature from our graveyard and remove it from the game to put X +0 +1 counters on Necropolis, where X is the removed creature's casting cost. This card is actually very good for Arcades the Strategist and should be strongly considered as an addition to any Arcades deck. The Dark has been heavily targeted in the past few weeks or month or so as buyouts, and many of these cards are so obscure that I don't actually see them really getting a reprint in the near future. In the number 3 spot this week, we have another Legends reserve list card. Land Equilibrium is up another 321% to $950. I actually checked over on Card Kingdom, and they've got a couple in the sort of good range still available for around the $300 mark, if that's something that actually interests you. Land Equilibrium is a very good card. In 4 mana, we're getting an enchantment, and if your opponents control at least as much land as you do, they must sacrifice a land every time they put a new one into play. So obviously really good in control and tax type strategies. Plays out well in something like Grand Arbiter Augustine, especially if you have a lot of mana rocks and you don't need to play much land yourself. This is sort of a continuation of recent weeks where we've seen a lot of Legends cards being bought out. Our number 2 winner this week is Oath of Druids, up 769% to $50. Now this is the Exodus printing, and this is clearly an old school printing buyout because you can get a Commander 16 version of this card for still under $2. Oath of Druids makes appearances in all kinds of heavy hitter Commander decks. Even the likes of Muldrotha, Golos, and Mael all employ Oath of Druids. It's a somewhat risky card, and you definitely have to build around it. For 2 mana, we're getting an enchantment, and during each player's upkeep, they choose an opponent. If that opponent controls fewer creatures than you reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card, put that into play, and then all of the revealed cards go in your graveyard. So there's definitely strategies that could be built around this, but you will have to do exactly that. And our big winner this week, up 947% to $5.55, is Selective Memory from Worldwake. This is the only printing of this card, and there is actually quite a bit of speculation around Selective Memory and why it's moving this week. There's really no new tech on Selective Memory. It did appear in a video by Saffron Olive a while ago when Thassa's Oracle was released. The idea being that you would exile most of your deck and use Thassa's Oracle to win the game. Clearly a combo type deck, but there's been no new brews, at least of note, with Selective Memory since then. So the thinking here is that somebody knows something that you and I don't know. Or the reality could simply be something along the lines of this is an older rare from a set from a while ago that doesn't have any other printings, and at some point this card may appear in a legit combo deck. Regardless, we're seeing Selective Memory move almost 1,000% this week. Alright, before I get into cards I'm investing in this week, as always, if you're a subscriber, you know I want to thank you for your continued support. And if not, now's a great time to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of box opening videos this week for the new Time Spiral Remastered set, and I'm really excited to get cracking on those. So if that's something that interests you, make sure you keep your eye on the channel this week. So the first card I've chosen this week is Wirewood Symbiote, specifically the Dual Decks Elves vs. Goblin printing, and the reason for that is because it's the cheapest of those printings. It's quite a ways off of its all-time high of over $3.50, and you can actually get other printings of this card for still around or under the $3 mark, depending on what you're looking for. This is a perennial staple card for any Elf tribal deck, especially in Commander. If we head on over to EDH Rec, we can see that it appears in well over 5,000 different deck builds, and many of the top elf commanders, the likes of Azuri, Zavala, and even Marwyn the Nurturer, employ Wirewood Symbiote for good and obvious reasons. Elf Tribal is a strategy that's never going to go away in Magic, and there's always going to be a demand for copies of Wirewood Symbiote. Up next, I have Sylvan Library, the Commander Collection Green version at $40. This is a fantastic pickup. Now, I did mention this card a while back when Commander Collection singles were bottoming out. Sylvan Library has always been one of those cards that's difficult to get your hands on. They've been pretty scarce up until this point. And at $40, there's still quite a bit of disparity between all of the other printings, each of those being north of the $50 mark. Gets a lot of play in Vintage and Legacy, and clearly in Commander as well. In recent weeks, we've seen Sylvan Library starting to tick back up, so now's the time to get your hands on one if it's something you've been looking for. And last but not least, we have our speculation play for the week. That's right, it's Realm Walker from Kaldheim at $2.50. There is clear and consistent demand for this card. I am constantly sold out of it in my store, and people are always coming in asking if I have a copy of Realm Walker. This slots really well into modern slivers, elves, any type of tribal deck really that employs green. For 3 mana, we're getting a changeling that's a 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, we choose a creature type, and we can look at the top card of our library anytime, and we can cast creatures from the top of our library if they are of the chosen type. Slots really well into any type of tribal deck, and this is the type of card that is going to have consistent demand going forward. Alright, I really hope you enjoyed this episode of This Week in MTG Finance. If you did, go ahead and smash that like button, it really helps me out, and we'll see you guys again soon. Bye for now.